So it is just a reference in the memory. Property is more than that. A property is not just allocating the memory to store a value. A property will allow to handle the accessibility of a particular variable, and the value, it also allows to get and set the values. Technically, as a programmer, you should say that property variable will not have a accessor, will not have any accessor. Accessors means we call them as get and set accessors. Get and set accessors. So property will have accessor. What is the purpose of accessor? I will tell you in the next level. We will discuss about that. Actually, the purpose of accessor is nothing but an accessor. What is the main purpose of accessor? You may say that you can read the value from a variable and you can set the value into a variable, right? But that is not actually the concept of accessor. Property will have an accessor, so which can provide authorized access to member in a class. Property will have accessor which can provide authorized access to member in a class. This I will prove in the next level. We will see that. Authorized access means you can restrict the value to be stored into a property according to the situation, according to the requirement. So variables doesn't have any restriction for storing and reading the value, whereas properties can be defined with accessors which will restrict the accessibility of that particular member. Authorizes the accessibility of the member. That means for this user, this is available. For this situation, this property is available. For another situation, this property is not available. You cannot read, you cannot write. That we can handle by using properties. That means variables doesn't have an authorized access, so cannot provide an authorized access. But properties can provide an authorized access. So what should be a technical answer from a developer? The technical answer from a developer should be about authorized access. If interviewers asks what is the difference between variable and property, so it is always good for an expert to tell that property can provide an authorized access to the member, and authorized access to the member. Authorized access means according to the situation, it can allow at some times to store value. At some times it will not allow to store value. It can differentiate, it can verify. So that is the ability. And how, if anyone asks, if interviewer asks how it can happen, that is through accessors. What is the purpose of accessor? Generally, when we talk about accessor, immediately many people will say that accessors are used for getting and setting the values, right? Getter and setter. Getter and setter, everywhere you can get and set a value. Then what is difference? The point is accessors are used for giving an authorized access to the member. That is the reason the word accessor is given to it, right? Accessors, get and set, are called accessors. Get and set are called accessors. How to use these accessors, I will tell you. These are used for providing an authorized access. So this is a very important question regularly asked in interview. So what is difference between variable and property? So if I haven't given answer about this point, we discussed, many people immediately after the class, many people might have this question to ask to me. That means you might have asked this question to me if I haven't discussed about that, because everyone have this doubt. What is difference between variable and property? And that is what actually you should know about variables and properties, right? That is one important point. Second important question in this point you need to understand is what is difference between function and a method. Can you tell what is difference between function and a method? Function and method. Any idea? Can you tell anything about what is difference between function and method? Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. So technically, actually, what is the difference between a function and method is, actually, the point is functions always intended to return a value. Always intended to return value. Methods are not intended to return value. Functions always intended to return a value, means always they will return a value. Methods are not intended to return a value. Methods are not intended to return a value. And one more point is that you might have heard about procedure. In SQL Server databases, Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server databases, you will have a stored procedure. And why you call a procedure there in Oracle or MySQL or SQL Server, you generally call stored procedure. Why you call a procedure there? Why it is called stored procedure? Why it is not called as a function or a method? A stored procedure also contains some logic. Why it is called a procedure? Can anyone tell what is a procedure? So why Oracle will not call as functions, will not call as methods? They call as procedure. So what is a procedure? Functions always return a value. Methods will not return a value. And what is a procedure? Anyone? Already we discussed about function. No idea? Actually, technically, procedure is so may or may not return a value. That means it depends on the situation. It can change its behavior. A procedure can act as a function. A procedure can act as a method. Suppose you have written